Welcome to my hip journey. This video documents my first full year of recovery after total hip replacement, including the 3 critical months before surgery for context. I've learned a lot over the last year, so I can reflect back and comment with the benefit of hindsight. So I think this video will provide unique information to help you in your hip journey. We are all unique individuals, so our hip journeys are all going to be different. But one of the things I've learned is that the 80-20 rule applies. About 80% of what we go through after total hip replacement is the same or similar, and 20% is unique. So while your progress might not be exactly the same as mine, you're probably going through the same things either faster or slower than I did. To start things off, I'll share this word of hope from a year ago.
Hello, it's about 3 weeks after my total hip replacement, and I'm going for a walk today. And even though today's video is about surprises the first week after surgery, I wanted to just let you know there is hope. And it's amazing that only 3 weeks into recovery, I've progressed this far already. There is hope. Keep a positive attitude. Keep plugging away. Things will get better.
Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far and you're not a subscriber to my channel, please take a minute to subscribe and set notifications on so that you'll be informed the next time I put out new content. And look for my hip support group on Facebook. Thanks for watching, and I wish you the best in your hip journey.
Okay, just got back from about a 12-mile bike ride. Beautiful fall weather, leaves all over the trails, about 72 degrees. Had a wonderful time, sort of moderate pace. I was following my wife a lot of the time and just really enjoyed it. So my goal right now is to get as fit as possible prior to this Inca Trail hike, especially lower body. So I'm doing a mix of things. I'm playing volleyball, I'm biking, I'm hiking, and just walking. So today's Friday, went for a bike ride. I'm sandwiching that with upper body weight training and physical therapy exercises for my hips. So yesterday and tomorrow I did that, about a 45-minute workout and stretches. And then last Wednesday, 2 days ago, I played volleyball in the morning and felt okay. And then the afternoon, I went for a 2 to 3 mile hike with my son. And after that in the evening, I was just in excruciating pain. So evidently that was too much for my hip. And I feel better today, but boy, I tell you, Wednesday night was misery.
I'd been wanting to take this trip for about 10 years, and I planned this trip just a couple months before finding out that I needed total hip replacement. My surgeon gave me his blessing because I was going to have the hip replaced anyway, so as long as I could manage the pain and survive, he was okay with me doing this hike. I've learned that the pain people suffer when they need total hip replacement can vary wildly. Most of my pain was groin pain, and my biggest challenge was getting a decent night's sleep so that I could function during the day. During the day, I could survive. This is the original thumbnail from this video, but what I've learned since is that the way this video helps most people is by talking about how I managed pain before surgery. So I've updated the thumbnail to reflect that. This is me waiting for an MRI to confirm that I needed total hip replacement. When I had my initial consultation in October, the doctor took x-rays, and he wasn't sure that I really needed total hip replacement based on those. But I was pretty sure, so I asked him to pencil in a surgery date. I didn't want to wait or delay any further, and then he scheduled me for an MRI the following month. Sure enough, the MRI confirmed that I needed a total hip replacement, and I sure was glad that I'd asked him to schedule me already. This was Mike's reaction when he learned that I was going to have total hip replacement. I melted my favorite Crocs that day, but one mustn't disturb Mike. We continued with a busy life all through December, trying to cram in as much as possible before my surgery in January. That included a trip to visit my sister and my parents. Little did I know that my mother would be having hip surgery 9 months after me, a track day with some friends at the Virginia International Raceway, and a trip to Spain to visit my mother-in-law. Airplane seats are always uncomfortable for me, but this was a particularly bad trip.
Okay, 1 week till surgery. I'm out here catching some last-minute volleyball with some friends, and weather's beautiful, a little chilly, but very nice. When I got fitted for crutches last week, they said one of the things I should do before surgery is practice walking with the crutches every day. And I kind of skipped it for a few days because we were so busy. We had a wedding and other things. But last night I started practicing, and I'm glad that they suggested that because it's a little tricky, but I think with practice I'll get used to it. I can walk around fine with it. I can go up and down stairs well, although very slowly. But the part I'm having a challenge with is opening and closing doors. So I'll have to practice that more.
When I'm not playing men's doubles, I'll sometimes play co-ed doubles with these ladies. I took these pictures shortly before surgery. My idea was that I'd create some sort of inspirational playlist to keep me motivated to get back on the sand. It's no coincidence that these same folks helped me get back on the sand so I could play my favorite sport, beach doubles volleyball.
Okay, it's 9 days until surgery, and I'm on my Concept 2 bike erg for about 20 minutes.
You can see it came with this super skinny seat, and I've got a pretty bony butt, so I went ahead and got a bigger, hopefully more comfort-oriented seat, because I'm not really going for streamlining or anything like that. I just need comfort.
I like doing this while I'm watching one of my favorite shows, Family Guy. This is just to try and keep my joints moving, blood flowing, muscles strong, so that after surgery I can continue with rehab using this same stationary bike. Today we actually are going to a wedding in South Carolina. So that's a 4-hour drive each way, total of about 8 or 9 hours in the car. That's going to be interesting. Yesterday I played volleyball and I did not sleep well last night. A lot of pain. I'm kind of surprised. If you'd asked me a couple months ago whether or not I needed the surgery or could put it off, once I had been taking the prescription meloxicam anti-inflammatories, I felt pretty good. And I'd even considered putting things off. But as the last couple months have progressed, the pain has come back. And if I want to remain active in any sort of way, the surgery has to happen. So I think it's a good thing. I'm still scheduled for surgery in about 9 days.
Just finished attending a wedding. This is my wife's van. You can see that she doesn't feel the same way about cars that I do. It's 2 days until surgery, and I'm getting ready to do another workout on the bike erg. I also wanted to share with you today my philosophy on blood flow. So it's probably not unique to me, but I've always kind of thought that having good blood flow in your body was good for all kinds of things. If you think about injuries to tendons and ligaments, typically when I'm talking to a doctor about those, they're always telling me how there's poor blood flow to those areas, which makes it difficult for them to heal. So this is one of the reasons why I like aerobic activity. It's also one of the reasons why I ran for so many years. I never really loved running, but it was the one sport where after a run, my entire body would be flushed. I could see that there was blood flow to the outer extremities and to all layers of my skin, and I just knew that my whole body had had some good blood flow. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, and hopefully it'll have a positive effect. By prehabbing, I'm improving my circulation now, so hopefully after surgery I'll have better blood flow to the areas around the hip and faster healing.
Okay, 1 day until surgery, and we're driving back from our beach house to Raleigh, about a 3-hour drive. I'm sitting here with my hip aching, and I really don't know what to do about the pain. I'm taking acetaminophen, which is pretty much all I'm allowed. At night, I'm taking tramadol, and that seems to knock me out for sleep for a couple hours, but then I wake up 2 or 3 hours later with, again, pain in my hip. And last night, after I woke up, I took some Tylenol PM, which has acetaminophen and diphenhydramine. And after a couple more hours, then the pain seems to subside. So I don't know what's causing it and what works. But at any rate, we had a productive trip. We built a triple bunk at our beach house, and it worked out well.
Just got home and baking brownies for a gaming night I'm doing with a couple friends. This is all happening right before surgery, and I guess the reason I'm pointing out all this stuff about building the bunk beds and all these other activities is just that I've got a very busy life leading up to surgery. Hopefully that won't bite me in the rear end as I go through this. I'm hoping I'll still have a successful and quick recovery. Anyhow, it's just to kind of keep it real and let you know the kind of activities I'm engaged in leading up to surgery. All checked in and ready for my surgery. Got my IV in. They've taken blood. And anyhow, I guess I'm ready for total hip replacement. Sure hope everything goes smoothly. If you'd like to learn more about my surgery day and the critical first week post-op, please watch these 2 videos. Many folks facing total hip replacement are afraid. They're nervous. They're anxious. And I've been told by many, many hippies that watching these 2 videos actually helps alleviate some of their fears. So if you're nervous about surgery, please watch these videos. The first week after total hip replacement can be rough for a lot of us. I did a ton of research and I thought I was prepared, but there were still a bunch of things that surprised me the first week after surgery. Since this video covers my recovery from total hip replacement for 1 full year, I'll take opportunities to compare things throughout that time frame. So for example, here is my incision at various stages in the healing process, and then finally at 1 year post-op. It's the Saturday after surgery, and I just completed my 3rd walk of the day. It's about noon.
So I switched to one crutch, and so far these short walks have been great. In other milestones, today I also uh, undressed, showered, and dressed by myself. I've been showering by myself, but my wife has been helping with the dressing and undressing part. But she's out of town today celebrating her birthday. And so rather than embarrass myself and my son, I undressed myself before showering, showered, and then dressed myself all by myself. In other big news, in other milestones, I should say, I had my first real bowel movement today. So thank goodness. That's a very important milestone. Prior to today, I'd only had what I like to call rabbit droppings. So this was a welcome event. So 5 days after a total hip replacement and just transitioned to going with one crutch.
A big part of recovering from total hip replacement is just walking. And a lot of folks want to see if they're walking enough or walking too much. They might have some aches and pains and they're wondering, did they overdo it? I recorded my walking progress in great detail and have documented that here in this separate standalone video. So I'm not going to fill this video with a lot of repeat material. If you're interested in seeing how I progressed, please go ahead and watch this video.
Had another big milestone today. I was able to go to church and even kneel for communion. So I wasn't sure it was going to happen, but I was up early enough and was able to get ready, and everything went pretty smoothly. I've been counting on my steps, on my nose just had my first post-operative appointment this morning, 2 weeks and 2 days after surgery, and I just got back from my first walk without a crutch. Instead, I used these walking sticks just in case. They're a lot more comfortable to use than the crutch is. So I'm just so happy to be rid of the crutches finally.
The month of February were still early days for me. Those were my post-op weeks 2 through 5. So things were still pretty uncomfortable and I was very early in recovery. We had another wedding to attend early in the month and that was pretty tough. I wouldn't have missed it for the life of me, but I was really only able to stay for the ceremony and a quick dinner and then headed right home. Recovery at this stage is mostly about walking, and not walking super long distances either. You just want to make sure that you're improving a little bit day over day. You might have noticed that up till now I haven't really mentioned physical therapy, and that's because when it comes to total hip replacement, surgeons are split about 50-50, where some say they do recommend physical therapy, and others, like my surgeon, do not recommend any formal physical therapy after total hip replacement. I've done a lot of research on this, I've polled people on the support groups, and as best I can tell, it's about 50-50. But of course, everybody has strong opinions one way or the other. So you and your surgeon will have to decide what's best in your particular circumstance. As for me, I was happy not to have formal physical therapy. However, I had worked so hard to maintain my physical fitness that I really wanted to start doing some additional exercises after surgery. So in my 2.5-week post-op visit with my doctor, I asked what sorts of things I could do. And so I started easing back into an exercise routine and documented those hip-friendly exercises in this video.
Another milestone today, I was able to put on my wedding ring. That's something I haven't been able to do for several months because when I take those NSAIDs, the anti-inflammatory drugs, they cause me to swell up. I gain about 5 pounds of water weight and my finger gets really tight, and so I felt it was safer to just keep that wedding ring off for a couple months before surgery as well as after surgery. But now that I'm off all the meds, my finger swelling has gone down and I was able to get my ring on easily this morning. So, whew.
So when did I start driving again? Well, my surgeon said as soon as I was off the narcotics, I'd be able to drive, but I wasn't sure I'd be safe driving. So about 2 weeks after my surgery, my wife and I took her minivan to an empty parking lot so I could try driving. And I was able to, but because my hip replacement was my right side, and that's the side I use for operating a gas pedal and a brake, I didn't really feel safe doing it. My leg was super weak, especially the muscles for like lifting it up and moving it, and you wouldn't want to have to like jam down on the brake super hard. Granted, 98% of the time I would be fine driving around, but if there was an emergency or I had to react quickly, that could be a problem. So I opted not to drive until about 4 weeks. And the other big challenge I faced was I owned this teeny tiny sports car, and I wanted to figure out when I'd be able to get into that. Even on a normal day, it can be challenging to get in and out of that car. So what I did is I set myself a tentative goal of 4 weeks post-op for getting back into my little sports car. And I started practicing about 10 days prior to that, just the motions, right? Could I get into position to enter and exit the car? Could I then Could I then move my leg into position? Could I then duck under and tuck myself into the car, et cetera, et cetera? So as with everything with this recovery, I approached it with baby steps and very, very cautiously because it was not worth it to me to mess up my new hip. So if you'd like to see the process I went through and how I managed to get into my little sports car, check out this video.
Silently, I must confess my troubled history.
Being that March was the second month after my total hip replacement, it was much the same as February, with a lot of walking, a lot of easing back into exercises to build up my physical fitness, and a few milestones. For example, I took my first walk on a trail, and I took my first walk on a sand volleyball court. I just went there to see what it would be like because I hadn't been on an unstable surface like sand with my new hip yet. Mike learned a few new poses, and we had a rare sighting of 2 Oscar Mayer Wienermobiles. Honestly, I was surprised by how much of my time it took just to perform the rehabs, to go for the walks, to do the exercise, and to work on regaining my physical fitness. I can understand why some people find it so difficult to do all the things necessary for successful hip recovery.
This is where it all begins, it's right in front of me.
Post-op weeks 11 through 14 happened during the month of April, and I continued to work on my fitness, increasing my workouts, and of course, documenting those in a video. As mentioned previously, I'm not going to repeat stuff that I've already documented in other videos, so I'll just include a quick reference here in case you want to watch one of those other videos to get all the details. At this point, I wanted to talk about a setback that I suffered almost 8 or 9 months ago that I'm still suffering with today. It can be really tricky to figure out what a particular injury is and if it's related to your total hip replacement or not. And just in the normal course of leading an active life, I often experience aches and pains, muscle knots, muscle strains, minor tears, etc. But during this period, I was getting fit again and increasing my activity significantly. You can see here with these ab workouts that I actually almost doubled the number of ab workouts from one month to the next. And even though that was a much lower level of activity than pre-op, it was still a significant increase. So while I was doing abdominal floor work, I started to experience some pain in my lower left back. Now my hip surgery was on my right side, so I didn't immediately think that it was caused by the hip or related to the hip, but I of course realized it could be somehow related to shifts in my body as I correct for compensations from before surgery. But I assumed it was just a normal muscle pull or strain or something like that, and I treated it like a soft tissue injury. So over the past 8 or 9 months, it's felt better or felt worse at different times, but it's never completely resolved itself. So this past week, I was really suffering with it and finally decided to see a doctor, get an x-ray, and find out what I should do about it. And I'll read you what the diagnosis is. And before I jump into that, I will say that I think it's not directly related to my total hip replacement, but I would say that it probably is related in some way because the changes in the way my body is functioning and the body mechanics caused by compensations pre-op and then the corrections post-op could definitely have contributed and created the situation where this happened. So here we go. The assessment and plan says chronic left side low back pain without sciatica, a sprain of iliolumbar ligament. Peter is a 56-year-old male with a chief complaint of back pain, lumbar area. He has PSIS and iliolumbar ligament pain. He has no associated neurologic symptoms. This has been chronic and ongoing. We fit him for a proper brace today in clinic for comfort and stability. This will help to relieve some of the strain at the base and insertion of his paralumbar muscle. He should use Voltaren gel 4 times a day, and will start physical therapy with particular focus on hamstring stretching. So in talking with the doctor, basically it sounds like where those back support muscles attach and insert into the upper edge of my pelvis have become inflamed. And that has become chronic, and so I need to relieve that strain by wearing this back brace and also by stretching my hamstrings because those tight muscles are actually putting extra strain on those attachment points. So I'm in the process of trying that now, but I wanted to let you know that it, as I mentioned, can be very tricky to figure out whether something is just a minor injury or something more major and then how to address it. Over the last 8 or 9 months, obviously, I didn't just accept the situation and muscle through it. I don't do that. I tried to resolve it, and I tried to resolve it by rest, by ice, by heat, by all kinds of different anti-inflammatory drugs, changes in activities, etc. And nothing seemed to solve it. So you might think that I waited too long, and perhaps you're right, but I just wanted to caution you in the hopes that this will help you avoid a similar setback. Wish me luck in getting mine resolved quickly. two important milestones in the month of April. One was my first flight. I took a trip to visit my parents in Northwest Indiana. And so that all went very smoothly. Again, because people are always curious about flying after total hip replacement, I created a video to help them understand what to expect. And I had my first volleyball warm-up game. I had some friends who were playing and convinced them to allow me to come and play one game with them before they started their normal rotation.
Down is not where I belong. This aching heart won't turn to stone.
With newborn babies, you measure their age first in days, then weeks, then months, then years. And it's kind of similar with a new hip. So at this point, I think it's safe to switch from measuring time in weeks to months. At 4 months post-op, I had several significant milestones achieved this month. Most important to me was that I was able to get back to playing 2-hour volleyball events. Before surgery, I was playing 2 or 3 times per week, and each event was about 2 hours or 2.5 hours. So this was a huge milestone for me. And as you can imagine, I didn't just jump into it. I eased back into it slowly. And first I was playing for like a half hour or an hour, and I made sure I had 5 players at these events so that if anything felt wonky with my hip, I could just bow out and not ruin the event for the other players. And eventually I was able to get back to playing my regular 2-hour events. So that was awesome. This video presents a common sense approach to resuming any sport or activity. Of course, I use my favorite sport, beach volleyball, as the example, but really it can be applied to just about any sport or activity. Most hippies are trying to figure out when they can resume a favorite sport or activity about this time frame, so check it out. The other big milestone was that I attended 2 racing events. You might not think that has much to do with total hip replacement, but actually it does, because when you're driving a car this aggressively, your hips are actually a primary means of communication. They give you a lot of feedback, and there are a lot of G-forces that you're experiencing going around corners very quickly. So while this video might look fairly sedate, if you're actually in the cockpit, you would know that we're driving very fast, very aggressively, and at the limits of mechanical grip for these vehicles, as well as the limits of our own driving skills. So it was a lot of fun, and other than a little bit of soreness, my hips fared well.
There's a fire inside these bones. It was meant to be.
By 5 months post-op, I was walking more than I'd ever walked before, so I started to explore new sections of our greenway system. Check this out.
Okay, I don't know what we have going on right here. This appears to be vastly over-engineered. This is definitely the most complicated section of a greenway I have ever seen. I am honestly not sure what to make of it. So let's see what happens here. This is just crazy towns, this section of greenway. I just can't believe they built this thing, and I can only imagine how many millions of taxpayer dollars this cost. This is the spot where I banged my head in frustration after seeing all the wasted taxpayer dollars on this section of our greenway system.
Even though I was walking more than ever before, I was still struggling to lose the weight I'd gained after surgery, about 10 pounds. I finally got rid of it with the help of 2 accountability partners on Facebook. Here you can see I'm on this teeny tiny scale that I took with me to the beach. June was also the time for our annual beach trip, so there were lots of nice walks there. Although I admit I was not very comfortable walking on the sand at this stage of my recovery, so mostly I walked inland on the sidewalks.
I see your world still full of light. How could I ever been so
So there you have it, actual documentary proof that Pete can dance. I guess I should say I really can't dance, but I made a good effort and didn't embarrass myself too much at my daughter's wedding. So yes, that was the big news. July was my daughter's wedding. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. And I love to dance, but I got no rhythm. And I really, really wanted to dance at my daughter's wedding. So I actually practiced for several weeks in advance. I tried to find sort of a script dance like the Cupid Shuffle that I could do and follow along. And I tried to learn a couple basic dance moves. I even watched some videos trying to figure out how to pick out the beat in songs so that I could dance along. One of the things that really surprised me was how I could feel dance moves in my hip. I had been doing all kinds of exercise and hiking and volleyball and things like that, but when I would try some fairly basic dance moves, I could really feel it in my hip. So for all those people who dance and want to get back to dancing, I'd just say be cautious. Thankfully, your bodies are probably used to those motions. Mine is not. And so those things were just really, really challenging, I felt. It gave me a whole new appreciation for dance. The other big thing in the month of July was just preparing for my hike of the Camino Santiago. That hike actually started the last week of July, but most of it occurred in August. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that in the August category.
I still haven't lost my fight that haunts me in my sleep.
August was my big trip to Spain, and the trip was really planned around one central idea that my friend Fernando had. He wanted to hike the Camino Santiago. So that was going to take us about a week, but we decided to make it a 3-week trip. And the first week we spent on the Atlantic coast of northern Spain. Then the middle week we hiked the Camino Santiago, and the third week we toured Portugal. It was an absolutely amazing trip. I haven't really documented the whole trip in a video, but if you want to know about the Camino Santiago hike part, that's right here in this video. And I thought it was kind of cool because last November, before my hip surgery, Fernando and I hiked to the Inca Trail in Peru, and then this was going to be sort of the other side of the bookend. We were going to hike the Camino Santiago in Spain. I will say that the Camino Santiago is more about walking than it is hiking because it's pretty flat and pretty easy most of the time, and you're going through small towns. You're not really going through wilderness areas. So I think it's a great walk or hike for someone after their total hip replacement. Check out the video to learn more. I'm about 7 months post-op, and about a week ago I went for a walk and had some serious pain in my quad, my thigh on the operative side. I don't know why, because I'd been doing great, hiking, playing volleyball, all kinds of good stuff. But I did something evidently, and it feels like a pretty significant setback. As it turns out, that was the understatement of the year, and this ended up being a serious setback. So watch this video to learn more about my bone inflammation setback, but more importantly, learn how to avoid it. The other big event in September was that my mom ended up getting total hip replacement, and this was kind of last minute. And I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth to help them while I was trying to recover from this setback.
Only time will tell if all the cards will treat me well, 'cause this hand that I've been dealt keeps me wondering.
9 months post-op was a huge milestone for me, because my surgeon told me that at 9 months post-op, my bone would be fully integrated into the implant. Before that integration, he told me if I had an accident, like falling off my bike or something, that the implant was likely to break. But after that point, he said the implant is solid and like part of my body, so something else is more likely to break. I never take things on face value, so when my surgeon told me this, and I was hearing in the forums that bones heal much faster than this, I looked into it further, and the research supports my surgeon's claims. So if you've been told that you're totally healed after a couple months from total hip replacement, you've been misinformed. This was super important to me, so I created this video to share the research that I dug up.
Tell me who can really say what will tomorrow bring?
9 months after my total hip replacement, the majority of my healing is complete, and I can do pretty much anything that I want and get back to my normal life. As I sit here wearing this back brace at 12 months post-op, I'm reminded that total hip replacement is major surgery, and your body has undergone major trauma. So it can take 12 to 18 months to completely heal from this, even though on the outside you might look totally normal and be able to lead a totally normal life much sooner. The last couple weeks I had some pretty significant pain in my operative thigh, but I was pretty sure that I hadn't been overdoing it. After a deep tissue massage and rolling it on a foam roller for a couple days, it feels better, but it's a reminder that my body is still adjusting, even 12 months after surgery. So would I do it again? Absolutely. This has given me my life back, and I hope it's given me another 10 or 20 years of an active lifestyle. Thankfully, the vast majority of total hip replacements turn out successfully and like mine, but not everyone has such a good experience. My mother had total hip replacement this year as well. She had her surgery in September and then unfortunately wound up with an infection, so she had to go back in for another surgery in October, 1 month later. Being 23 years older than I, her recovery has been a lot more difficult. But if you think about the pain she was in before surgery, I still think it was worth it for her, and the infection was just unlucky. The last 3 months of my first year after total hip replacement were busy and back to life as usual. We did a lot of things. Our persimmon tree had a bumper crop, so I spent some time developing jams and cobblers and all kinds of persimmon desserts. I got this cool license plate for my son's car. One of my sons and I spent a week at our beach house building out a bunk room that can now sleep 8, and we discovered an authentic Chinese restaurant which we absolutely love. This dish is called fish like squirrel tail. And I had to laugh when I saw it because I was like, so there's a dish that requires squirrel tail, which you can't acquire here in Raleigh, so you substitute in fish? But actually, what it is they slice the fish and cook it in such a way that it twists into this sort of spiral shape, and it's absolutely delicious. So I'd highly recommend Fish Like Squirrel Tail. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far and you're not a subscriber to my channel, please take a minute to subscribe and set notifications on so that you'll be informed the next time I put out new content. And look for my hip support group on Facebook. Thanks for watching, and I wish you the best in your hip journey.
So this is a chairlift that my sister's boyfriend John installed and kind of MacGyvered actually. And I'm going to take it for a ride for the first time. I've been wanting to do this and haven't. So here goes. Okay, so I had to press this little button here. And you just press it in the direction you want to go. And now I'm going up the track. And you can see this is tricky. It does a 180 turn. So John actually found 2 different chairlift sets on Facebook Marketplace, and then MacGyvered this into one setup that solved their situation. So here at this sharp turn, it automatically slows down to a snail's pace so it can go around. It's pretty cool. Now it's speeding up a little bit more, trying to see what it makes most. Whoa! Now I'm going up. Whoa! Okay. Now I'm going up the last section here. Oh, and I guess it's slowing down again because I'm getting near the top of the stairs. Doesn't want to throw you. Oh, now it's speeding up again. I don't quite know the logic behind that, but I don't care. It's working really well. And both my parents have been using it while my mom and dad are staying here due to my mom's total hip replacement. Very nice.